See. What is up, everyone? Thank you for joining the live stream here. Of course, we have some special guests today. Rejoining us, of course, is Yellow Flash. We also have Tug on here for the first time, and returning, Reuben Langdon is returning here today to chat with us. So I'll let everybody there introduce themselves. If you want to go and start off first, Flash.
I'm Yellow Flash 2 as well on YouTube. Talk about a lot of anime, comics, video games, but lately a lot of other craziness in the anime industry.
Which we're not going to talk about today, right?
No,
yeah, exactly. No, not at all.
Okay, good.
And Tug.
Hey, I'm that umbrella guy on YouTube as well. I like to point out stupid things and mock them repeatedly. That's pretty much what I do.
All right, so and just to address that right off the bat, yeah, last time we were on with you, Reuben, there was a little bit of fallout afterwards, a little bit of backlash, some articles that came out and stuff like that. So I just wanted to say, apologize for any of the backlash and fallout that came because of that particular stream. Obviously, that's not something that was intended. We were obviously trying to do something a little bit more positive, but sometimes that doesn't happen when people want to take the things that are said and twist them. So apologies for that, Reuben.
Yeah, no worries. No, I don't regret anything that was said and done. And what happened. And today we're here to talk about something else. So I'm glad to have back on the show. And it's my understanding that we sort of touched on the alien subject last time, and you guys wanted to dive a little deeper into that. And that's my favorite subject to talk about. So let's do it.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I mean, well, we can start off with, I guess the best way to start, for people that don't know, we could go as far back as 1940, 47 with Roswell, or we can start off with more recent news, like the stuff you've been sending me the last couple of days, which is pretty interesting stuff with the whole Navy starting to acknowledge some things. We're starting to get some military branches here being a little bit more open to talking about this stuff, which is something that is kind of unprecedented because most of the time, that's something that these military military branches stay away from because of obviously looking a certain way. So,
right, I would say, why don't we start with what has been officially released? Because, in my world, I've been in this deep. I produced the Citizen Here on Disclosure. 5 days of testimony in front of 6 former members of Congress, 1 senator, over 40 hours of testimony. And afterwards, the members of Congress were absolutely floored and absolutely, after hearing the evidence and hearing the testimony, seeing the evidence, were absolutely convinced that humanity is being engaged by an extraterrestrial presence. However, that was a mock congressional hearing. It wasn't the real thing. So why don't we start with what has been officially released, and then we can start diving into some of the more hypothesized or theories or things that I have dove into that I would go beyond theory. I would go beyond hypothesis. But yeah, I sent you some articles and some things to look at, which has been mainstream's been on the news. It's on the news daily now almost. It's a subject that it seems to be coming up pretty regularly here. But it's undeniably you cannot argue it, or I guess you could, but it's harder to argue something that's been officially released through the Pentagon, through the Navy, through these official channels with paper trails and documentation to sort of prove it and to show where it came from and how it is officially, been officially released in these ways. So why don't we start with that, and then we can move into the woo-woo side, I suppose.
Yeah, we can do that. Oh, and from time to time, we'll go ahead and break and take some super chats. There's only one so far, with somebody asking. Cookie Kiko is asking you, please, can you shout Yeti to Reuben, please? Yeti!
Yeti! I just reposted just before getting online the Indian Army has apparently found a Yeti, and we're talking about it in a tweet. So Just found that hilarious. That, you know, and these are official channels. Like the Indian Army wouldn't be talking about Yetis just out of the blue. You know what I mean? You know, you're not going to have. For us, the Indian Army may not be that credible, but I'm sure people in India probably think the Indian Army is very credible. As we take our Navy and Air Force and other military forces, we hold with high credibility when they make announcements like they did last week with the UFO, with their sort of recategorizing the UFO subject, as well as giving more attention to pilots who make the claims that they are seeing, you know, strange objects in the sky. So it's sort of a, by default, an admittance to the fact that the Navy takes the UFO subject very seriously.
Yeah, and I think they're the ones. I mean, as of late, because I mean, the ones that usually handle, or at least one of the first military branches to really look into that stuff was the Air Force, right? Was really
the Air Force with Project Blue Book, and then you had, and these are, we're talking about declassified open projects that we know about. Now, there's a whole slew of black budget classified projects, several from all of the agencies, not just Army, not just Navy, not just Marines, not just Air Force. You know, they're all in this deep, and they have different classifications. And we know about the ATIP project that was sort of released. That was the New York Times article that came out December 16th, 2017. That was the one that sort of started the ball rolling with a lot of this, with them releasing officially 3 videos, talking about recovered materials being held in a hangar in Las Vegas. And we know that's attached to Bob Bigelow. And we know Bob Bigelow had a research facility, NIDS, at Skinwalker Ranch, which my buddy Jeremy Corbell did a documentary about. So we know since December 16th, 2017, that these government agencies are taking this information seriously. We speculated up until now through whistleblowers and through different things. We in classified documents and stuff that sort of showed that they were taking it seriously. But the public, the mainstream, the you know, until now, it hasn't been written up in the New York Times, right? Until December 17th, 2017, or December 16th, 2017, we hadn't had anything written in the New York Times. So now we have the New York Times and several publications, and you just Google UFO and news, and NBC, CBS, Fox News, all the mainstream guys have been covering this subject since the New York Times article broke.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, even just recently, the video sent me that on Fox News, Tucker Carlson was talking with the guy from the Navy and such. So yeah, it definitely seems like it's.
Well, he wasn't actually from the Navy. He was a former CIA guy. Okay. And he is part of this To the Stars Academy that was helped. You can't write this stuff. It's crazy, but it was brought together by Tom DeLonge, the Blink 182 singer.
Yeah, Blink 182 guy. That's crazy.
So Tom, like me, is deep in the peanut butter, has been for years, and has been researching this stuff for a long time. And we know that Tom had gotten pretty far with his research when the WikiLeaks came out, and we saw the Podesta emails that he was talking. We saw, because the DNC so-called hack, which wasn't a hack, we'll find that out very soon. If people don't know, it's so blatantly obvious if you do any research. It's Seth Rich gave the information to Julian Assange, and that's all going to be coming out in the next coming probably weeks when Assange testifies, and that's a whole nother angle, spiral into another part of this stuff. But we know, because this was made public, and then several news agencies actually did reporting on some of the emails that were found from the UFO conversations that several high-ranking generals, John Podesta from the Hillary campaign, and also former what was his position with the Obama administration? I forget, but there was a lot of conversations going on there between Tom DeLonge and these guys, which basically proved, yes, Tom DeLonge was having these conversations. Around that time, or just before that time, the To the Stars Academy was formed and announced. It was actually announced in December, or in what was it? October or November of 2017 is when To the Stars sort of went public, and it's a public benefit corporation. And the head, one of the former CIA guys, several Lockheed scientists, Lockheed and ex-scientists from those sort of black budget programs got together with some, Lou Elizondo and others who have been in these secret programs, and formed the To the Stars Academy in order to disclose this information, working with other branches of the military and Pentagon, and to legally find the nuggets that are okay to disclose and to help disclose this information. So from one perspective, these guys are rock stars, literally, with Tom DeLonge, with their contributions to the disclosure movement, because they're actually doing some amazing work and pulling strings behind the scenes to get things unclassified. Another perspective is that it's all being set up, that they are being sort of a carrot is being dangled for them to yes, disclose certain information, but also disclose it in a way that fits a narrative that the military industrial complex and others within that complex want the narrative to be told in a specific way that benefits them. So there's a lot of different angles to take a look at it. For me, I am grateful for the work that they're doing, for shining the light on this subject that's been dear to my heart for over a decade. So whether it is misinformation or disinformation, we're yet to find out, right? We don't know yet. But what I do know is that the information that's been disclosed thus far is true based on my research. So, these military sightings, the gun camera footage of these UFOs, that's all accurate and that's all true. And I believe so far from what I've seen, everything matches up to my research. So I don't think there's any great deception that's been done yet. And I say that, you have to earn someone's trust if you're going to deceive them. So at any moment, we could be deceived. We could be led down, the wrong path. But that's where discernment comes in. That's where other researchers can validate and vindicate their efforts. And so far, from what I've seen, it's good stuff. So far, I can't complain. We have the Navy now coming out with their announcement last week. It's my prediction that we're going to see a lot more of these types of disclosures, maybe even this week. We'll see.
That'd be fantastic to hear. Because after so long, especially with how the military has been, but that's something I actually been wanting to ask you. So with the whole, all right, we have with the military, or I should say the government in general here, like I see that there's definitely more of an effort, especially with the stuff that you've sent me. They're definitely more willing to acknowledge these things publicly, at least more now than they ever have before. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing about it, though, is that, of course, like you said, there's truth behind it, there's credence behind it, and that's kind of like, that's always been kind of the polarizing thing, right, with the general public, is that they look at it and they say, well, it doesn't seem true because of the military never really confirming it. That seems to be what people hang their hat on, is the whole idea that the only way that it could possibly be true is if the government confirms it. And I think that that's kind of a,
which they have now.
yeah, which they are now, which is great. But it's funny because if you think about it, I think that they're from as far back as, the A-bomb. I mean, look at that. I mean, nobody knew about what was going on in Alamogordo. I mean, nobody knew about what the atomic bomb was until after it had already been used. You know what I mean? It was before that, it was just cover-ups. It was lies. The general public had no idea. And it's just like, I would think that as far back as that should be taken as a great example as to why you can't always believe what they say.
And Obama officially announcing Area 51, just a few years ago, when we've known since 1987-9, I guess, when Bob Lazar came out on the scene, or John Lear, who released the photos of I think it was the SR-71 before, or the B-2 bomber. I think that's what it was. He was one of the first ones to get photos of that and release that out into the public, because he's out there, in Nevada, out there by Area 51. And he said there's a secret base called Area 51. Then Bob Lazar came out in the scene and said, yeah, just south of Area 51, S4, the reverse engineering alien craft. There's 9 craft there. I'm working on one of them. We had all this information back in the late 80s and 90s. Until that time, until just a couple years ago, Area 51 was not even, official. There was no official claims. Everybody knew about it. We all knew about it, right? But it wasn't official. So same thing, the military, they have these projects, these black budget projects for various reasons. Some, for our benefit, you would hope, to utilize this technology, to reverse engineer this technology, to protect us. But who's to say if it's all secret and black budget and we don't know, and not even our Congress members know, because I've had conversations with former Congress members where they knew black money was being allocated to these black budget programs, but they're not in the need to know. They're not read into to what it's being used for. They're told it's for national security or for the benefit of, America, and to just trust it. But there's no checks and balances on this stuff. So how do we know that it's not being used? These technologies are not being used in a nefarious way. Plus, if we have technologies that can propel something through space and time without burning a rocket, without it making explosions and burning some kind of fuel, don't you think that information should be released to the public so we can get off the freaking oil game? This is the most important part of all of this. No matter what your religious views are, no matter what perspective you have, what your belief systems are, we have now admittable by the U.S. government, by the U.S. Navy, by the Pentagon, we knowingly have recovered, hence in the New York Times article, recovered artifacts and elements. And this is in the New York Times. This is not me saying, Bob Lazar's story or trying to vindicate or validate any of the other stories that we've heard over the years. The Roswell crash, all this stuff, all the thousands of people who have come forward to testify about this stuff. Throwing all that out the window, just going by the New York Times. We know for a fact now, and the Navy announced this, that there is technology that can propel, and we even have this on video, that can propel objects through space and time at thousands of miles per hour. The G-forces on that would kill any living being inside. So if there are living beings propelling these things and moving these things through space-time, and they also disappear at the drop of a hat, a second. We have video and we have records of just disappearing. And they're not using any kind of rocket propellant technology. There's no fuel being exhausted. There's no trace of fuels. So we know this as fact. Now we do know that there is physics, because we can see it and we can record it and we can analyze it. There is physics that allows some objects to travel through space and time without any kind of exhaust. Don't you think that technology would be valuable for the human race? just admitting that technology exists, whether or not we can figure it out or not, just admitting that would put our entire scientific community, turn it upside down.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The thing is, but then again, why exactly what you were talking about earlier is like, you know, when you look at that, why wouldn't there's a motivation why they wouldn't release those, because it wouldn't benefit some of these big corporations and put them out of business.
Why did they why would they confirm things like this? You know, you're talking about all the secrecy and cover up, and then they confirm something. What, I mean, why the about face on doing something like that? Why do you think?
Well, there have been factions within factions. So when you talk about the U.S. military, the Navy, the Air Force, it's not so cut and dry as you would think. Just like as we know with the Trinity bomb, there was, you know, top secret of top secrets. There's compartmentalizations within all of these military groups. There's compartments in the military, there's compartments in our government, in politics. We know that everything is compartmentalized. So when things are so separated and compartmentalized and not open sourced, not even Congress members know what's going on half the time, that within these groups, there can be factions that have different motives. So factions that can gain control of the UFO narrative, that can gain control of the technology and then release it to their benefit. Now, within the same group of Navy, not all of the people in the Navy necessarily think that's a good thing. There's a lot of people and most people, I would say, in government and military who took an oath to serve and protect. And now if they're seeing that this information is being used to benefit a small group, they're going to speak up. They're going to try to do everything in their power to say, that's not right. That's not the oath that I took. So therefore, I want this information out. I want to help get the disclosure, but because of my NDAs that I've signed, because I've sworn secrecy, I'm not allowed to do it. I actually had, during the production of the citizen hearing, I had a gentleman, I won't say his name, show up at my office in uniform, in the Navy uniform, gave me his card, and he said, we were following what you're doing, and we appreciate what you're doing. We think disclosure, many of us within the system want disclosure. I didn't know if this guy was real or not. He gave me his card. It said Pentagon. I was like, whatever. A lot of weird things happen when you start getting into this subject. So I said, okay. And we sat down and he sort of explained to me. He said, look, we know these technologies exist, but it's so he basically is telling me the same thing I'm telling you guys. It's so compartmentalized and, you know, different top secret classifications and things that many of the people who want to do good can't even access those programs. And the reason they want to, one of the main reasons they want to, he told me one of the main reasons they want to do it is to protect and serve the soldiers, because the biggest consumer of oil is the US military, particularly the Navy. These ships take a lot of energy to run. Not all of them are running on nuclear, not all the subs are running on nuclear energy. Not all the aircraft carriers are, you know, are able to get off of oil. They're running on oil. So what happens is their supply lines are the most vulnerable, because you have to constantly, you know, set up a base, and then you have a supply trucks going daily. Those are where, you know, the insurgents, the terrorist or whoever can come in and take out all the soldiers. The easiest way to take out soldiers is to get the supply line. You take out the supply line, then the base is vulnerable. So this guy, this was in 2013, this guy was saying, we want access to free energy. We want access to these programs so we can indefinitely propel our base without having to lose lives, right? And I get it. From that perspective, I get it. And that's his motivation for declassifying this information. Now you go down the whole line of different classes and compartmentalized groups, and everybody's got a different reason to either classify it or declassify it. to get the information or not get the information out. So there's a lot of agendas going on here. But if you can imagine that certain groups within the military keep this information secret, they slowly leak it out into public domain, bigger corporations. So then the corporations can develop those technologies to make a pretty buck on, but only are given enough of the technologies to a certain extent so they can, you know, make an iPhone or do whatever we can do to have the, you know, to sell and become multi-billion-dollar industries like Microsoft and, you know, Apple and these other groups. And if anybody wants to go into deeper information on how this all started, you can read Colonel Corso's book called The Day After Disclosure. And he goes into how he was in charge of taking Roswell crashed items and slowly leaking them out to Texas Instruments, GE, other corporations to develop the technology. And they would, sort of the story that they use is, we are in the military, we're investigating, and we've come up with some technologies for some things, but we don't really know how to quite use this. So maybe you guys could benefit, maybe humanity would benefit, and they leak out little nuggets, right? Just enough to get us advancing in the way we've been getting advanced in. And then the good stuff, you know, the 0-point energy, the anti-gravity, the interdimensional space travel stuff, they keep inside for themselves. They're not going to let that out because, one, potentially it could harm, you know, society might not be able to handle that technology and major accidents could happen. You know, if you give the power of a thermonuclear weapon, you know, the size of this, and you give that to somebody on the street, they may not have the responsibility to use it, you know, in the right ways. Therefore, the military feels obligated to not release that information. However, it's a mixed bag because this same energy device could power an entire city as opposed to keeping us enslaved in the oil thing. So it, you know, there's a lot of different agendas involved, a lot of different groups, and this is why hopefully this gets this sort of a long answer to your question, but this hopefully sheds a little light on why now.
Well, do you think they're more inclined to do it like, you ever see Elysium? Like, keep it for the rich and then just keep the poor in their place?
But you have to understand, not everybody in the military has that mindset. There's a lot of really good people in the military. Some personal friends of mine who are in the military who want to do the right thing, who want this information out. So not everybody is going to be working for the rich, so to say. They want people to thrive. And so when they come across certain information, they are going to be inclined and they're going to have the conversations with their supervisors, and the supervisors, up until now, the supervisors have been shunning the whole thing. They've been squashing it down and like you said, keeping it for an Elysium type situation. But now there's different people in power. There's different groups that are losing, you know, the old oligarchy of who's been in charge, that's shifting very fast. And if you've been following any of the Q stuff or any of that stuff, you probably can figure that out and what's going on there.
That's wild. Oh, just real quick, we got a couple more super chats. This one's from Killer Critic, $10. Thank you, Killer Critic. He says, Reuben, what are your thoughts on Kill La Kill and say this scissor blade was left behind by the person who killed him? Now you're going to tell me who this scissor blade belongs to, Satsuki Kiryuin? And then somebody said, and then he followed up and said, say it in Dante voice.
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
I think he might be referring. I mean, maybe he thinks it was a voice that you did in something.
He wanted you to say Yeti in Dante's voice. I remember that.
Oh, Yeti. I guess say in Dante's voice. And he also another $2 he donated. Dante versus Xenomorphs and favorite DMC5 weapon. So I guess those are questions for you. Dante versus Xenomorphs from Alien and favorite DMC5 weapon. And I guess he wants you to say Yeti in the Dante voice.
Okay. All right. Yeti. I don't know. It's not much different than my normal voice, but here I'm just going to put some lights on here.
Yeah. Dante versus Xenomorphs. Who wins, Reuben?
Wait, what is Xenomorphs again?
Remember the aliens from the Aliens movies?
Oh,
huge
Dante. Oh,
aliens
of
with the
course,
big.
Dante. Yeah, there's no way. I mean, Dante's a demon from another dimension, half human. He's got a big sword and guns. I mean, the alien, right? They had the robot things, but Dante's got a bike that can like saw things in half, right? So I think Dante's got that one pretty much covered.
All right, Star Wars Cantina, 2 pounds. Thank you. It's my birthday. Please, can Ruben say Happy B-Day, Sonny?
Happy B-Day, Sonny.
There you go. I think we're caught up there. Let me make sure. I think we're all caught up with the super chats. But going back to what you're saying, see, and what Flash was saying, the whole thing of who it benefits. I think that's also interesting stuff, because remember when I think if you remember when I was talking with you the other day, when I was starting to do some of the research on it too, one of the guys I mentioned was asking about his credibility was Stephen Greer. Stephen Greer. I was reading a little bit up on him, and you told me he's got some stuff that he's credible in some areas, maybe in some others not so much. But one of the things that he had mentioned was just that kind of, to Flash's point, bringing up the whole Elysium thing was how and to what you were talking about earlier, all these different technologies that have come out, all these things that are so far advanced but have not made it to the general public because of how it might affect. That's something that Stephen Greer was talking about in the documentary I saw, is that the reason why they keep it hush is because some of these corporations, they know that supposedly they're working to make sure that it doesn't come out, because it would put them out of business. They're
for sure.
They're lobbying to make sure that stuff never sees the light of day.
You'd have to take out all the gas stations and rechange cars completely.
Exactly. Well, look right now. What are the biggest companies in the world?
Wow. I mean,
what are the biggest? What, just off the top of your head? What business are they in?
Yeah, they're all in oil. You mean like Enron and companies like Enron and what's another big one? They're all oil. They're definitely all.
What about pharmaceuticals?
Pharmaceuticals. That's the next stage. But before we get to pharmaceuticals, oil companies, energy companies.
Oh yeah, they're the top.
90% of the money in circulation goes to energy companies, to big oil, to big energy, to all of it. And the solar wave that's happening with solar and wind, these are just distractions. These are just they're temporary band-aids right now. And the big oil companies and the big companies, they know that. That's why they let it out. They let the solar stuff and these things sort of out into the open. And oh yeah, it'll take them decades before they figure out how to make that stuff good enough to put us out of business. So we'll let that go. But when you have the technology of a device like this size, this is just a battery for my flashlight, but I'm just using this example because it's here on my table. But when you have a device that's this size, or even the size of this bottle, that could power your entire house and not need refueling, but maybe once a year or twice a year through some kind of plasma energy or something like that, then that's instantly. You go to Home Depot and you buy one of these for $10 and you retrofit it to your house. What is that going to do to all of the power companies in the world? What is that going to do? You put the same device like this in your car to run your car now. What is that going to do to the gas pump, right? So yes, these are the biggest industries in the world, and a disruptor like the UFO thing had been kept under shields for quite some time. It's just now making its way out. It's if we were having this conversation before in the 90s or 80s, I'd probably have some guys knocking on my door. We can have this conversation now because it's been out there enough, and now officially it's in circulation, and now the military is finally getting it out. But let me tell you, this conversation is just starting for humanity. It's something I've been deep in for a decade, but for a decade I've been in it, knowing what's happening, but also seeing, well, when is this veil going to be lifted? When is humanity going to understand? And now that we're having this conversation, and now that it's really up to us as consumers of these energy things to make the shift to, yeah, I can retrofit my home with solar panels and buy a Tesla battery. You do what's available now, but the more we do that, the more we wake up to the fact that these things do exist, the more disclosure in the sense that these technologies are possible, then that goes global. That goes to every human being on this planet. And as soon as you can start thinking outside of the box as far as limitations, if you're taught in school that there's no way you can do anything, this is the system and this is how it works, and energy, the most advanced energy has already been discovered, and there's no such thing as space-time, traversing time and space without any kind of burning gas or rocket fuel that's going to get you from point A to point B. As soon as you start allowing that information in as a possibility even, then the collective human race is instantly going to start tapping into that and start creating inventions and doing things outside of the black budgets. We don't even need to declassify any of that stuff. You just need to say it's possible. And we're already getting that. Look at the advancements in quantum physics. Look at all of the advancements that's happened just in the past decade within this sort of woo-woo field.
That's interesting, because when you were just mentioning that, the whole being out there with people and some people just learning how to do stuff, it reminded me of there was that guy, I don't know if it was the late 80s or early 90s, I can't remember exactly when, but the guy that ended up creating I don't know if it was an engine or a car, and I'm sure you know about this, Reuben, more detail than me. The guy that created the water car, that it was able, just run completely on water.
He drove it from LA to New York. And then he was on, you can Google it, he was on a couple of news programs, and then he died. He was poisoned and died, and the car was seized by the Navy, and we never heard about it again.
Didn't BMW make one too?
Didn't who?
Doesn't Jay Leno have a hydrogen car?
Jay Leno was reported to have ridden in this car.
Okay.
I haven't seen any footage or have records of that. I've heard rumors that Jay Leno drove inside of this car, and the guy's name is I'm blanking on it. But if you just Google water car, 1980s, 90s, you'll get some news agency videos on YouTube. There's also a water motorcycle that was on 60 Minutes. There's water cars, hydrogen cars. And we're talking just straight water. You just put water in the tank. That's it. And they run. In Japan, they were developed. These technologies have been developed and have come out and then been squashed. They come out, they've been squashed. They come out, it's just constant. But we're getting to a point now where you can't, the inventors who are doing these things in their workshops or in their tinkering in their garages, so many of these things, it's like whack-a-mole. These government agencies have been, somebody comes out, bam, 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 but now it's like, oh, there's too many now, we can't do it anymore. So that's why we're seeing more of this stuff come out now more than ever. And they're also realizing that they can't keep whack-a-moling, because eventually, with the internet, and humanity's going to figure things out. And these other guys, the white hats, we'll call them. Actually, the guy who came into my office said he was part of a group called the White Hats. These groups and these people within the military that have been fighting this oppression for so long are now finally getting into power. So now they're able to have a say in the game. That's why you're seeing this disclosure and the Navy admitting things and other things. It's still happening slowly, so it's palatable for the human collective to take it in, But let me tell you, this is just starting right now, and we're going to see a snowball effect, an avalanche of declassed information coming out on these technologies.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, it's definitely an exciting time to live right now with all the information that's being put out. Let me get a couple more of these right here for you, Reuben. The Killer Critic says, I meant the anime Kill la Kill. Is that something you're familiar with, Reuben?
Not familiar with that one, sorry.
Kill la Kill? Okay. Star Wars Cantina, 2 pounds. Thank you. Says, please, Reuben, say now, this is my Kinderain in Dante voice.
This is my
Kinderain? My Kinderain?
Kinderain.
Kinderain? Yeah, this is.
Yeah. Guys, just so you know, my voice is not any different than Dante's voice. You're not gonna get anything different. You know, I may put a little swagger into it or something like that, and you know, like let's go kill some bad guys or whatever. You know, but it's essentially it's the same voice. I don't do any like super changing my voice up like some voice actors do. It's just me.
It's just you. Somebody else has asked you to say something. Zypher Warrior, $2 says, Reuben, can you say I love that umbrella guy?
Wait, it's Thug, right? Thug.
It's Tug or that umbrella guy. That's what I do for my channel. That I love that umbrella guy. That's hilarious.
All right. Well, I love that umbrella guy.
All right, thank you.
So, umbrella guy, do you have any other questions?
Oh man, I mean, you know, it's interesting. I was looking through your timeline, trying to catch up on some of this stuff. I was also noticing the Yeti stuff. I was looking back at it, and it was really interesting that the people there were talking about not calling him Yeti, calling it a snowman because it's disrespectful. Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just where I'm touching on right now with this subject matter. I have gone so deep, guys, that it's really hard to explain. But I'm just trying to ground the information to let you guys know sort of some of these perspectives to make, you know, because a lot of people, you hear the word alien or UFO and people just roll their eyes. But there's so much weight to that topic that people don't realize. And I think, you know, another disinfo type of propaganda that's been going on for decades is the National Enquirer, and, you know, which has been proven and funded by the CIA. So anytime they want this information to be sort of, you know, they feel like some people are getting too close to the information or something. Well, let's just put on the front page of the National Enquirer today's special alien sauce or whatever, and just make up some story that there may be some truth in there, but as soon as it's on the newsstand, you know, in the grocery stores, you know, we don't see it so much now because everybody's doing digital stuff, but this we're talking decades of disinformation and misinformation and purposely steering the narrative of this subject down a certain path. And we collectively as humans, through our media consumption, through Hollywood, through the news, we have created almost a taboo to not talk about this subject matter because it's been engineered almost for us to not talk about it. And when you realize it and you follow the money and all this stuff, and you can find out who's doing what and why is it happening, you know, all paths lead to special interest groups.
Wow.
What do you think about the like Sumerians and Mesopotamia and all that stuff and their interaction?
Yeah.
I mean, you could see a
lot of truth in there. Zacharias Chichen and his work is amazing. You know, he talks about the Anunnaki and this group of ETs that you know, him deciphering the Sumerian tablets, and this is how he's gotten a lot of his information, talking about this race of aliens called the Anunnaki that actually came and seeded life here on this planet, which is not, you know, how many times have we seen that story in our you know, not news, but in our Hollywood movies, right? We've seen that story told a million times, and that's where they getting it. They're just, you know, looking at researchers' and different ideas and concepts, which I think there's some valid information in there. Did he get it 100% right? We don't know. We don't know for sure. And one day we will know, perhaps. One day we may not. It may be forever a mystery. But
have you ever noticed that when it comes to education and school and stuff, they have very little to say about that culture and the beings that they worshipped?
Sure, absolutely. Same in Egyptian. We have the Hathorns. We have these webbed-eared giant beings, statues of them as well in the Egyptian culture. There's in all sorts of cultures around the world, ancient cultures, indigenous cultures, there are stories of beings from the stars. And most of those are just sort of skimmed upon. We're not really looked at. But I've had some interesting conversations with some Hopi elders and some Mayan elders talking about our ancestors and beings that they've heard through their legends and lores that their great grandparents had interacted with. So it's not so far out there to say, when you start putting all the puzzle pieces together, that there is something greater going on here, and for us to just not pay attention to the story, and just simply shrug it off to the latest edition of the National Enquirer, then it's a disservice to humanity.
Wow. All right, let me get a couple more of these here. The Texas Saint 83 says, "Yep, human achievement isn't a thing we can't do. D word, without reverse engineering alien stuff, we couldn't possibly have done anything on our own."
Well, no, that's not true at all. I know that's a stab in the side to try to say that that I'm dishonoring or saying that humans didn't invent anything or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that there's the control of the narrative, and there's been leaking of specific technologies, slow drip leaking, and it's been human innovation that's taken those little bits and pieces and to reverse engineer them and to do amazing things with them. But all of our technology, I'm not saying that all of our technology is reverse engineered alien technology. Never said that, never made that claim. So to use that stab in the side, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to deflect that, because it's not true. There are a lot of great inventors. There's a lot of great innovation that's come legitimately from human beings. I'm just saying that some of the technology in our existence, if you look at Colonel Corso's book, you look at the military, and you look at over and over whistleblowers, and what they've come forward to say is that specific technologies have been released to the public in a specific way in order to benefit a small group of elites.
I believe that too, for sure. Especially, like I said, with the stuff that I've looked over, at least within the last couple of days. So that to me makes perfect sense.
I mean, why would Bob Bigelow, a Las Vegas hotel tycoon, why would he be given money? This $22 million from the ATIP program, a lot of it was allocated to him as a private contractor to investigate places like Skinwalker Ranch, where he set up a laboratory and had full-time scientists there studying these unusual phenomenon. And then now the guy is an aerospace, he's one of the top aerospace guys up there with SpaceX, selling back technologies that military and our own NASA is buying technologies from this guy.
Wow.
How could a hotel tycoon who's interested in aliens, and I have a lot of colleagues who he hired and paid good money to get their research, and now the guy has a facility in Las Vegas with the gray space alien as an insignia, and he's one of the top aerospace developers in the world, selling technologies back to our own government and other private industries. Like, come on, guys, you got to put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah, they're leaving the breadcrumbs out there pretty blatantly, doing stuff like that. All right,
And Bob
let me.
Bigelow is on 60 Minutes going, telling the woman, you don't have to go anywhere. They're right here. The search for this extraterrestrial stuff. He's blatantly telling on 60 Minutes. Anybody can Google that and look that up.
All right, let me get this one real quick. Oh, go ahead, Tug. Sorry.
No, I was going to ask. Here's something. I've been going back and reading a lot of this stuff, and I noticed the change in the way encounters were described. After say the Hill incident, you have the different type. Before that, you have friendly encounters. You have all of these friendly encounters, and then afterwards, you have this this narrative switch. Why do you think that is? I mean, why does the narrative switch?
When you say the Hill, what do you mean?
Like Barney and what is
Barney and Betty Hill?
Yeah, Barney and Betty Hill. Because before that, you have hey, they took me on a fun space ride, and they took me to wherever. And then after that, I mean, you notice this again, a more unfriendly tone to encounters.
Well, the Barney and Betty Hill story sort of was the beginnings of the abduction phenomenon that we know today, where there's reported potentially millions of people who have been so-called abducted or detained, and Harvard psychologist Dr. I'm blanking on his name, Dr. Mack. He wrote a book called Abduction, and he had regressed thousands of people. And through the numbers of regressions that he had done, he had sort of estimated that there were probably millions of people in America alone that have had this phenomenon take place. So around that time in the 80s and 90s, you had so many people having these experiences where they felt they were being taken against their own will. So I think that's probably when the narrative shifted, because so many people reported this abduction scenario. Before then, I don't think it was really that much reported. I don't think it was going on in the masses that it was started going on in the 80s and the 90s.
As well. Let me get a couple of these more here. Oh, the Killer Critic again. $5 says Kill la Kill is. He's explaining this to you, Reuben. Kill la Kill is an anime that has a girl in red using a sword to defeat her sister, who dresses in blue and wields a katana. Dante and Ryoko interacting. I guess he means those. The character. I guess Ryoko would be the character from that particular show. And he followed up with that saying, the Killer Critic followed up with that saying, check your Twitter post with Yeti to find Kill la Kill. So I guess he linked it for you so you can get caught up to speed. And let's see, awesome. Zephyr Warrior says, why is NASA looking for just carbon-based life?
Are they just looking for carbon-based life? I don't know. I'm sure they're looking for all kinds of life, but we associate life with carbon-based life forms. So I guess that would be my take. There are probably other types of life forms that we don't understand as life forms, crystalline-based life forms being one of them. I believe that crystals themselves have the ability to be sentient. That sort of goes into a whole woo-woo side of things that most people aren't going to agree with me. But the more we look into and research, the capacity for a crystal to hold information is quite phenomenal. Look at all our silicon technology that we have right now. These are all crystals. Silicon is a crystal. So yes, I agree. They should be looking for life more than just in the carbon-based idea. But right now, collective humanity only believes life can be can exist in a carbon-based reality. So I think that's probably, we collectively as a human race need to sort of expand our perception of what life is, through crystals and silicon is one example. We are soon to have AI, which again, mentioning crystals and silicon chips, that we soon will have AI online, and that we could consider that a life form if we choose to. I
would imagine.
I recently put a bunch of posts out there saying that in order for AI to work properly, we are going to have to give it a classification of sentient form, or sentient. We're going to have to respect it as a life form, or the doom and gloom scenarios that we've seen in our movies could actually happen. So these are all fascinating times that we're in right now because of the advent of extraterrestrials, AI, other forms of sentient life, perhaps in a crystalline form. These are great questions and great conversations to continue to have. So yes, someday NASA will look for life outside of the carbon-based life form.
Wow. At Flash, Tug, it sounded like one of you wanted to ask something.
Oh, I just said I don't think they will do that for AI, and that's what will lead exactly to the Terminator.
Terminator.
Well, when you say they, who are you referring to when you say they?
The people that are going to run it. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be using a lot of military things. For sure, they're going to use it probably to fly jets, all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, you can practically get rid of soldiers.
Absolutely. You could get rid of, not only could you get rid of soldiers, you could get rid of all war on this planet with AI.
Yeah.
Unless the AI brings the war to us.
Right. Well, not necessarily. If, and this was in a post. So if we, and this goes into the governance, if we had a machine, AI, for example, capable of taking every single data point that we now in our governance, in our how we govern life, right? We elect representatives to go to Washington, D.C. to speak on behalf of the people, right? But are they really speaking on behalf of the people? Most of them are taking money under the table from special interest groups and then pushing laws that help those special interest groups, not the people, right? So what if we were to form, and I posted a great TED Talk that they were talking about this, what if we were to create a form of governance where we cut out those middlemen, where us individuals have the power to push a button, make a click, and then form a vote for who's going to represent us, but just how to govern us. What if we didn't even need people to govern us? Right now we have authorities, we have presidents, we have congresspeople, we have governors. What if we had an AI that could actually delegate specific tasks in all the ways that we want them to delegate without the middlemen taking special interest groups? And this would have to be a decentralized type of AI, similar to a cryptocurrency where it has no governance over it, where we can go peer-to-peer and send money peer-to-peer. What if we could send not just money, but any information, and specifically governing type information? Governing in the sense that, okay, we need X amount of firemen over here, we need policemen over here, we need hospitals over here, we need this because of the population density and because of the needs of the people. And if we could directly have an influence on that by cutting out the middleman and just uploading the information of our wants and needs, then an AI can sort of figure out all of that in a much more efficient way than the way we're doing it right now.
The way you explained that, and I'm not sure if any of you have seen that show, but it reminded me of reminds me a little bit of Terminator with the Skynet thing, but it actually reminds me more of I don't know if you guys have seen the show The Travelers on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
Where it has the AI, the director that kind of like sends them back to certain points in times to in order to save the future, and it's just that's kind of like their be all end all kind of system that figures everything out. This ever learning AI that delegates these responsibilities and tasks to them to ensure the survival of the future, or survival of humanity in the future. That's what it kind of reminds me of hearing you talk about that.
Yeah, I actually love that show. I hadn't caught season 2 yet. I just saw season 1. But I mean, yes, these themes now, because we're getting closer to developing them. You know, we have Star Trek, we have Travelers, we have these other shows that are now coming. They're hinting on this because we're getting closer. We're getting closer to this concept, to these ideas, to developing the technology to be able to bring us and usher us into this new era. It's ultimate democracy, really, when you think about it, because now everybody has a voice. Right now, we have a voting system, we have all this stuff, but look at how many people actually go and vote, right? 20% maybe, right? People actually go and vote. Why don't they go and vote? Because like you and me already know, it doesn't really matter, because they're already bought and paid for by these big corporations, and they're going to these people are going to make the decisions and do what they want, however they're going to want to do it, right? It's a shame that it's gotten this bad, that it's gotten to this state in the way, you know, America's was set up on, and it wasn't set up to be this way. But unfortunately, our founding fathers of this country didn't estimate probably the huge population surge, all of the technology that we have right now, all of the stuff that's going on within governance as it is now. I'm sure our forefathers would be turning over in their grave if they saw what was happening, and they would demand a better system, a better way of doing things. And we're sort of figuring that out now. I think this is the rough time that we're going through, and finding how to better govern ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that's something actually that we can kind of segue into here, because I think it's something, Flash, that we can kind of get into a little bit more. I think, you know, I don't know if me and Flash have ever discussed it, especially the way the things are structured in government, but I might have, I don't know if I had that conversation with you, Flash. It might have been somebody else. I might be remembering a conversation that I had with somebody else and putting you there on it. But with the whole way that everything is, and you were mentioning it a little bit, you briefly touched upon it earlier, Reuben, when you mentioned Seth Rich, you know, and what happened as a result of what Seth, you know, things that happened there as a result of what Seth Rich was trying to do. And how, you know, just a blatant example of corruption with the whole Seth Rich situation, which definitely left a lot of more questions than answers. There's definitely something stinks there, and I, you know, people of course will say, oh no, you know, it's just conspiracy stuff. But I mean, when you look at the situation involving him, what happened to him, it's, you know, it's a little bit too convenient for it to be coincidence.
Right. And you know, look at, it was supposedly a robbery. His wallet wasn't taken. All the police involved. There's a lot of fishiness going on there. It's just cover up after cover up after cover up. And this is what we're starting, that string is being pulled on. And it's, you know, there's a lot of different strings dangling right now, and they're all being pulled on at the same time. The Seth Rich string, the WikiLeaks string, the DNC string, the UFO string, these technologies. There's a lot of things happening right now that we're starting to figure out very quickly, and it's going to, you know, the hammer is dropping fast in a lot of areas, and it seems like, and a lot of people are in. I just posted, there's a lot of people that are feeling like it's like almost like the end of the world, right? There's so many things happening, not only out there in the governance in you know, US and world government affairs, but personally, so many people are feeling like there's no way out. There's no choice. Like, this is it. What do I do? And sort of giving up. And this is actually what we have to do. We have to surrender to what is, in order to usher in this new way of doing things. Because, you know, as I said before, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, right? We've heard this.
Yeah.
And we're sort of reaching this climax, this point where we can't keep doing the same things over and over again. In government, in environmental issues, in, you know, going to the gas pump over and over, putting that gas in, like stock markets, economies, banking systems, like all of it, it's been done to death, literally. And we're in that death phase of all of it. And we're about to have a major breakthrough. And we are already seeing these breakthroughs. As I mentioned, cryptocurrencies earlier, you know, getting rid of the middleman, development of AI, potentially for governance or for other reasons, not for war, hopefully, not to pilot our jets to fly into, you know, enemy territory, perhaps, but let's get rid of the enemy territory before we find the jets, you know, and we're doing that. We're finding out that the opioid crisis is being perpetuated by, again, big pharma. You know, why in Afghanistan has the since the UN actually went in and took over, why has the annual tons of opium products coming out gone from 150 tons to 644,000 tons in the past 10 years? The opioids being, and we have the UN, we have military on the ground there, you know, supposedly policing all this stuff, and we're supposedly at war with ISIS, you know, over the opioid things. How can they continue to openly create so many flowers to then sell in the black market to big pharma companies? So, and these are all the things, these are why we have wars, guys. All this stuff is happening. So we don't need the military jet with the AI if we get rid of these other issues. And this is why I'm saying, you know, we need to look at the bigger picture of governance, of how we do things. And that's what we're being forced to do right now.
Wow. It's crazy stuff. There's actually a question I want to ask you to follow up with some of the stuff you said. Let me get some of these people that have asked questions though real quick though. Ink Penification $2 says, ever seen JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
I haven't, but I'm very familiar with it. I love the artist and the artwork in it.
Yeah, Iraqi. That's good stuff. That's what people would consider to be a manime. Manime, because it's got fighting in it. You know,
absolutely.
It is a manime. Yeah.
What publication does that show up in over in Japan? Is that a Shonen Jump?
I think it's a Jump.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, most of those are manimes.
Yeah. Is it Shonen or is it? It's one of the Jumps. I'm not sure. Yeah, it might be one of the Jumps.
It's one of those. It's definitely. I know it's one of the publications targeted at a young male demographic. I can't remember exactly which. I don't know if it was Shonen Jump specifically, but definitely one of those types of magazines. Okay, Cookie Kiko, 5 pounds says, "Hey Reuben, what's your wife's view about aliens and UFOs?"
At first, she was sort of open to the idea, but since she's been with me, she has had her own sightings now. So she's been convinced, not by me telling her they're real, but by actually seeing lights in the sky, bizarre lights in the sky. So, and having some unusual contact experiences in her own right. So that's what happens when you hang around the UFO guy. You kind of
open your eyes.
You're kind of inviting in. Yeah, you're kind of inviting in. You know, this is what I eat and breathe and live. And I hope, you know, I know we're covering a lot of subjects here, but the UFO subject matter, you know, I asked the questions from the get-go. I saw these things, I had my experiences, and then I started asking the questions. And the questions led me down the rabbit hole to realize this whole structure of governance, of the secrecy, of the technologies, of, you know, what people term as conspiracy theories, right? Yeah. They are conspiracy truths. They are not theories, my friend. When you go into it and you dive deep into all this stuff, I have created I have covered and gotten so much knowledge about so many subjects that I didn't even care about before all this. I could care less about governance or cryptocurrencies or banking systems or, chemtrails or any of this stuff. I didn't really have a concern or care about it, but curiosity got the best of me. And I was trying to figure out how things work, why things are the way they are. And most of us don't ask those questions. And when you start to ask these questions, whether it's the UFO question or whether it's why, government is the way it is, why are we using a US dollar that's not backed on gold anymore? Why is it backed on oil? What happened to the war in the two Iraq wars that we had? What's going on over there? What was that all about? When you start realizing 9/11, big one. When you start digging deep into these subjects, any one of them will lead you down the same rabbit hole.
Yeah. That's all interesting stuff. And now that you brought that up, I'm going to have another question for you after I get through these real quick. So the legendary devil hunter Dante, $10, thank you, asks, hey, Reuben, not sure if y'all covered this. I just got here, but I would like to hear your thoughts on the initial Roswell incident.
Well, over 300 witness testimonies say that it actually happened not the way the official testimony is. It was crashed vehicle or vehicles, perhaps. Bodies were recovered, and there's even some testimony that one of them actually lived. There were so many people that had come forward. Like I said, over 300 people went on the record and different aspects of it, whether it's the coffin makers making child-sized coffins, to autopsy people, to nurses having caught a glimpse of things, to actual what's his name? He was at our citizen hearing. The son of the airman who actually went on the record to tell the whole world that originally it was crashed flying saucer, and then they redacted a couple days later and said no, it was just an air balloon. But the son who actually testified in our citizen hearing and said his father brought home a piece of the craft and he held it, and they put fire to it, they did everything they could, and it would just mold kind of like in Terminator. It would just kind of go back to its original form, super lightweight, and it had some insignias on it, and he jotted those down. But a few days later, some guys came and took that piece of material that his father gave to him, so he didn't actually have access to it anymore. But there's just so much around that subject, and the official U.S. testimony has shifted official U.S. testimony or version of what had happened at the Roswell crash has changed 3 times. And the latest is ridiculous. The latest, they were saying it was some kind of Russian weather balloon with mutated kids inside, I think is the official, which is more outrageous than aliens, actually.
Yeah.
the way the latest official testimony is. It's ridiculous.
Stanley knew the truth.
Stanley knew the truth.
All right.
Absolutely.
We get a couple more of these here. So he followed up with that Devil Hunter Dante, followed up with that saying, also, Reuben, please give Itsuna-san my best. The games that you two were involved in were a large part of my childhood and teenage years, and I wish you both the best in future endeavors. Let's rock.
Let's rock. Absolutely will do. I'm not sure when I'll see him next, but for sure. Maybe he'll be at E3. I wonder. Maybe not. No, actually, I think he said he's skipping E3 this year.
A lot of people are, even Sony.
Yeah, exactly. So
that sounds like a conversation to have as well. Let's see, Zypher Warrior, $2. Thank you. Ask, should we not set up rights for AI now, not later?
I think now. I think we should do it now because, my personal opinion is we have AI already in some black budget programs. I mean, look at quantum computing and how advanced that has become. I think AI exists already. I just don't think it's public, but I think it's around the corner, as everybody is saying it is. publicly, somebody's going to create AI if they haven't already in their garage, So yes, absolutely, we should be setting up rights for AI, and treat it as we treat each other, as we should treat all life in existence, with respect and compassion.
Okay. And Cypher Warrior followed up with that saying, look up Appleseed in regards to artificial life.
I love the Appleseed comics. I read them when I was in high school. Big fan of Appleseed.
Nice. All right, let's see. And let's see who else we got here so we can get caught up here. Let's see. In Intimidator 108, $20. Thank you. Asks, Voltron, Transformers, and GoBots and others 80s anime and cartoons influenced my love for Mobile Suit Gundam Wing, my favorite anime. If you guys have a favorite anime, what influenced you to not only that show, but anime as a whole? So I guess that question's open to whoever. So I guess why don't you take that one first there, Reuben?
Yeah, I think I mentioned before, Macross, Robotech was a big influence. Then, of course, Akira, Gundam I dabbled into, didn't get super into that because I was sort of always leaning towards Macross and Robotech stuff. But Appleseed, I read. I think I dabbled in a little bit of everything, but the big ones that stand out for me would be Robotech, AK Macross, and Akira.
What about you guys? Flash, Tug?
Tug?
I was going to let Flash go ahead.
Tug fell asleep.
No, I'm good. I Robotech was an early one, that I actually got into. I don't know. I've been experiencing a renaissance. My daughter turned 5, and she's basically gotten me interested in Robotech again, but also
Nice.
in everything from that to Death Note. She's been sneaking it. She's little, but she's like, I gotta sneak it. So scratched it too. So I had to buy a new one. It gave me a reason to upgrade though, so that's awesome. I don't know, man. There's been so many good ones. I've been, but Robotech really got me started, I think.
What about you, Flash?
Dragon Ball Z is what got me into it.
Snap.
I think that's the gateway for many people. And then the larger scale stuff outside of that, because I didn't even know what anime was at first, would have been Akira and Ninja Scroll. Ninja Scroll for sure, because I thought it was badass with the samurai. But Akira helped get me my love for motorcycles. So that was that and like Terminator. Those two movies were what I look to when I think of bikes and stuff like that.
Ninja Scroll, that's a manime.
That's another
Ninja
one.
Scroll is great, man.
Yeah, that's a fantastic one.
For sure.
I mean, for me growing up, it was probably the same usual round of suspects as everyone else, but it was like, it's like you watch the anime before knowing it's anime, because when you're a kid, it's just all cartoons until you get a little bit older and you start to learn the differences between the stuff. For me, it was Voltron growing up for sure. That was definitely that, and Robotech was also another one that I watched as a kid, and I loved them both. Like those were fantastic. And then of course through that, the other other cartoons that obviously weren't anime, but they're funny enough. You don't know, they're cartoons, but then you find out that they have that Japanese influence, like Transformers, which was a Japanese toy brand that Hasbro brought over here, and then they gave them that identity of being the Transformers, but they were just a toy brand from Japan. So it's just like all that.
Thundercats.
Thundercats, another good one. All that stuff. Grew up watching Silverhawks, another good one. And even some lesser. I remember watching some lesser known shows that were based off of Japanese stuff, like Spiral Zone, the one based off of a Japanese toy line. But I didn't know. Obviously, I didn't know that back then when I saw it. Sure. It's just all these cool things that are influenced by that. I mean, those are the things that definitely influenced my life. And it's interesting, everybody here on this call, it's how interesting it is that these are things that kind of influenced our lives, but also kind of molded these interests that we have in topics like this, like the alien stuff, like the technology stuff, and and things of that sort.
It's in the collective consciousness, I think, for since 47, the Roswell crash, and you mentioned Stan Lee and the Marvel and all that, a lot of this stuff, Doctor Strange, a lot of this stuff comes from this, even though a lot of the stuff's been top secret for so many years, it's still in the collective consciousness. So there's a truth to it, even though it's, in our view, it's science fiction. There's still a certain level of truth to these out there, science fiction stories. And that's what resonates in our heart, in our DNA. Like, we know, wait, there's something about this program, this anime, this out there concept, but there's something so close to home about it. And I think that's what we're unpacking right now. We're realizing, oh, wow, UFOs are real. Oh my God. I mean, just that statement alone, in which we started this conversation, and I know I went off in a bunch of different tangents, but think about it, guys. The U.S. Navy last week officially said that these craft, not from this planet, like, they know, they monitor the other governments and their secret technologies and developments, and they said it's not Chinese, it's not Russian, it's not from this planet. I highly recommend you guys watch the Bob Lazar documentary. Bob Lazar and Area 51. It's on iTunes, it's on Vimeo. That Bob Lazar's testimony after 30 years still holds up. There's been revelations over the years. His testimony hasn't changed one bit. He's taken 4 lie detector tests, passed them with flying colors. He's been hypnotized, regressed. He's been scrutinized over the years, but his testimony remains the same. And he's the guy that blew the whistle on Area 51. He's the guy who said, I was working on reverse engineered craft. Other people have come forward since to vet him for his, said that they've worked with him in different parts of his career in Los Alamos and other places. But we have, if you look at that testimony, and you can now kind of look at it a little more seriously with the Navy disclosure. He said in the late 80s, early 90s, he was working on a craft from the Zeta Reticuli and trying to figure out its propulsion systems. And he wasn't briefed on the other projects and didn't know much, but he knew of at least 9 other craft from various places, and that were in that same installation, probably more now. So if you take that as truth, and you take what we know with the Navy as truth, just that alone in itself is absolutely paradigm shifting, the biggest change thing. Like, you can't even think of anything else that's bigger than that. In our history of the human race. We are not alone in the universe. Like, right now we say that's, oh yeah, of course, by now we all know we're not alone. It's mathematically incorrect. No, we're not alone on this planet. Like that. That is huge.
Yeah.
That is the biggest paradigm shift that humanity is going to have once we all kind of grasp this and let it set in. Like, I think a lot of us haven't really fully grasped that. But once you grasp that, everything you do from now, having that knowledge, it changes everything. It changes our view on energy. It changes our view on the entire human existence and what we do and how we move forward from here.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy to think, and just harkening back, just even thinking about it, like with the stuff that we expressed that we grew up watching and liked, it's just like, and to think that all that stuff could be a very real possibility here very soon.
Yeah.
And it's all stuff that came from people's imaginations, but it's not that far off.
I mean, think about this. This is going a little theoretical and whatnot, but think about it. If we have craft, if we have visitors from another civilization that's able to travel through space and time, to have the technology, which we already know exists, the Navy officially said it exists, And we from the New York Times article, we know through the ATIP programs that, you know, and Lou Elizondo has gone on the record and said, there's way more stuff that you guys, that we haven't revealed. That not only in technology, but also beings from another civilization somewhere out there, way more advanced, maybe 1 million years more advanced than us. Don't you think that they could have probably, if they are able to travel here by, you know, through space and time and bend time in the way they do to come here, don't you think that they probably figured out how to get through their politics and to get through, you know, their mundane day-to-day stuff? Like,
Yeah.
the fact that that even exists, that there's a homie out there that we can say, hey bro, how did you do it? Tell me, did you guys have a Donald Trump in office and did he like make everything better, or did you guys like use an AI machine to figure things out? Like, tell us how you guys did it. Like, that's a possibility now.
Yeah.
That, like, just even that, having that conversation, we can do that if we choose.
That's crazy, man. All right, and so people ask some more questions for you here, Reuben. Let's see. Mark Man $5 says, Reuben, why doesn't Capcom let you dub the Japanese games in addition to the English games? Also, thank you for the stream.
That would be an awesome honor to do that, but Japanese is a very difficult language. And even though I speak it fluently, I've spoken it now for over 20 years. It's been a part of my life. There are some subtle nuances that would still come out when I would say it. Even though in my day-to-day conversation, people say that they can barely detect an accent, if at all. Like when I'm on the phone, sometimes I'll talk to somebody and then I meet them in person and they're sort of like, oh, you're a white dude. So that's cool that I have
You're
that
gaijin.
ability. I'm a gaijin. It's cool that my Japanese level is to that level, but it's not quite to the level like for me to be in the booth, to be able to deliver a line in that sense, as Dante does, as the voice actor, I forgot his name, very well-known voice actor who does the voice of Dante. Shoot, I'm blanking on a lot of names today, but he delivers, his performance is so good and his subtle nuances are so like just right there that I personally, I don't think I would be able to deliver it that well as he did. And because in Japanese, they're not as forgiving as we are with English. Like if we see, for example, Michelle Yeoh on Star Trek Discovery, her English is pretty near perfect, but we can detect an accent. We as English speakers are forgiving in our hearing accents when it comes to like a British accent or a South African accent or Australian accent. Like it's English. Okay, we accept it as English and we're okay. We don't like dog on the accent so much. In Japanese, they're very critical of their accents. So if they detected even a subtle American accent, they might be laughing or they might not be as accepting as we are with our accents. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I get it.
Yeah.
It's more of a kind of perfection thing.
It's a cultural thing too. It's more of a cultural acceptance of accents, where in English in America, we've sort of accepted accents as a thing. Like they laugh if you are from Osaka and you're in a movie and a little bit of your Osaka accent comes out, like they're like, oh, there's Osaka, that guy's from Osaka. His accent came out and showed. Like that's, you hide that. If you're in a movie, unless your character is from Osaka, like you purposely only speak with the Tokyo accent. Like that's just like the culture around it. So anyways, hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The Killer Critic. All right, yes. If Itsuno would remake DMC 1 or 3, which one would you, I guess he's asking which one would you like? And he also asked a follow-up question. What are your thoughts on the DMC reboot?
I'd love to redo DMC 1 with me. Because I came in from the series from 3. I don't think there's a need to remake 3 because it's an awesome game and will live forever that way. But 1, one, you know, it was a different voice actor, a different motion capture actor, and to remake it with, you know, the new cast, so to say, I think that'd be awesome. Be great. And the DMC game I played, it's a great game as a game goes, but the story sucked. And the, you know, the new take on Dante, obviously, obviously I didn't like that at all because it wasn't
Hipster
me.
Dante.
Yeah, hipster Dante, and it wasn't me. Come on, you know, I'm gonna be biased, but
Of course, gotta be.
yeah.
So let's see. All right, Ink Pinification says, let's see, if you guys haven't checked out Watch Read Monster, it's really good and great for non-anime fans. So I guess it's more of a suggestion.
I actually have a guest role in the anime series of Monster. I forget which episode, but I think it's on my IMDb. So if you look it up, you'll see. I played a detective, one of the detectives in the Monster anime series.
All right, there you go for y'all to go check out.
For the
I
English
love that
dub.
series. That's a great series.
See it right. Ichihime90, $5. Thank you. Says, Reuben, are you familiar with Gunbuster, the anime? If so, how many years do you think it will take for human space travel to other planets?
I am familiar with Gunbuster. I'm a fan of Gunbuster. Back in the 90s, it was one of my favorite OAVs. The you know, Gunbuster still is using sort of rocket technology, which, as we know, is an archaic way to propel somebody through space and time. You know, our combustion engines in our car are, you know, over 200 years old. Essentially, they're, you know, they've got some nice bells and whistles on them with new, you know, newer technologies that may have came from aliens, you know, with the computers and all of these other things. But essentially, we're still blowing things up in a small compartmental area to then project us forward and move us through space and time, which is a very old way of doing things. Once these other technologies, which we now know exist because of our, you know, Pentagon and Navy releasing this information, we know that these things do not use rocket technology, and they're propelling themselves thousands of miles per hour through the atmosphere, and then instantly disappearing, which means, in my opinion, and also if you look at the Lazar documentary, explains it very well, that they're able to control gravity and control gravity waves. This is another thing Lazar talked about in the late 80s, that gravity waves do exist and that these craft have control over gravity waves. Gravity waves weren't discovered until just a couple of years ago. So we didn't even know gravity waves actually were a thing. And here Lazar is telling us back in the early 90s that that's how these craft are able to manipulate gravity, much like a magnetic field. How certain magnets can contain an electromagnetic field or a magnetic field, like they're able to manipulate that field around the craft. So since that technology we know exists, we're just right there. We are right there about to enter into a whole new space program where these technologies can now be open sourced and made public, and will be traversing space and time in maybe a couple years, decades perhaps, and then being able to visit other planets with potential life or life already, much easier to go. You know, our nearest star, 4.4 light years away, Sirius, would take us, you know, at the speed of light, traveling at the speed of light 4.4 years to get there and back. That's a 8+ year journey, where that's if we're traveling at the speed of light, which we don't have anything that can travel that fast in existence. But if we can bend space and time and get there perhaps instantaneously, that's a possibility. And we know it's a possibility because we have visitors doing it to us here.
Well, we even have
Yeah.
Sorry, cut you off.
Good.
We
Go
even have like so there's an equation for it, but we don't have. It's like an unknown element, which is the fuel to do it. I don't know if you're
Well,
talking about it's like the Albuquerque.
Element 115 is what Bob Lazar claims is the fuel source for these for that craft, that particular craft that he was reverse engineering. At the time when he came out, element 115 wasn't even on the periodic table. We now know it is a true element and can be synthesized in particle accelerators. It can be synthesized in small amounts. The mainstream scientists say it's not stable, but scientists have been, there's been discussions that a stabilized version of element 115 is a possibility. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. So Bob Lazar has been right on many occasions over the 30 years. In his original testimony, he said element 15 exists, which it wasn't even on the periodic table. He mentioned Area 51 for sure, we know now exists, which at that time was still not true at the time. And he also he mentioned there was like a hand scanner that measured your bone length to get in and out of the facility. And at that time, everybody thought he was crazy. What are you talking about? And now we have actual photographs and declassification of this hand scanner that's used in some of these top government facilities back in the, in the 80s. So there's been several other things he's also vetted and have come out with, but I highly recommend you watch the documentary.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I say, yeah, I'll have to check it out. I know who he is from watching a lot of secure teams content.
Oh, okay, great.
I might have to check him out as well. I think he's
got,
one of the ones.
He's a big channel.
Yeah,
he's got a couple million. I think at least 2 million subs. I think he's one of the big ones.
Yeah. Secure Team's killing it. He's doing a great job.
Have you been on Secure Team's channel, Reuben?
No, I haven't.
I bet you'd have you on if you asked him. Hit him up.
All right. Maybe I'll hit him up.
Got to get the word out there, man.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys giving me an opportunity to talk this talk.
No, this is all fascinating stuff, man. I mean, I'm always wanting to learn more and more about stuff like this because it's it's fun to learn all of that, and it's not in the sense of like, oh, I'm always interested in the possibilities of these things, and obviously things that are true, because we've learned, I think it's pretty safe to say, as time has passed, we've learned that obviously, no matter how much people try to give credence to the government and say, oh, if we knew stuff, the government would let us know, that obviously that has been proven false.
Right.
Time, that's not always the case. But like, even with even the stuff that's just outside of the whole, the phenomenons and things like that. I mean, I'm always interested in learning more about stuff that's, classified and that gets declassified. I mean, even whether it be stuff like 9/11, stuff like that, which I don't know. I don't think I've ever told you this, Reuben, but my dad was actually at the Pentagon when the plane hit.
Wow.
He was there. Yeah, he was there when it actually hit.
Wait, you mean the missile?
No, he says it was a plane, man. I mean, and the thing is, I kind of have to. I can't tell him. He gets really mad when people say that. But maybe I should have you talk to him one day. But he no, he said it was a plane. He said it was for sure a plane.
Where is it?
He saw it hit, man. He said it got obliterated, man. But he was there. He was there. He witnessed it firsthand. I'll give you the information on him. My dad's info after the stream, Reuben, because obviously I'm not trying to dox my own dad on the stream.
Sure.
Here.
No. And to his credit, even if it was a missile, so to say, these again are all these things. These are the things that we're going to understand more in the future as the D-class comes out over a lot of this stuff. But even if it was a missile, he would probably not be allowed to tell even his own son if it were.
No, probably not. Yeah, probably not.
So So these are, I'm not saying your dad is lying or anything like that. I'm just saying that and I could be proven wrong too. I'm not saying that I have the gospel truth as far as it for sure was a missile, but that's the theory just based on what we know, and there's still so much we don't know about what happened that day. And I think there's been a lot of military intelligence agencies still trying to figure that out, because there's so much, again, compartmentalization and different groups with different agendas, with different stories. And it's not all one big government secret that everybody thinks it is. Like the government they're not all in on it, so to say. There's different groups that have done some very nefarious things over the years, and there's some really good people that are just now getting into power where they can actually call it out, so to say. And we're seeing that with Trump. We're seeing that with the FISA declass that's on its way. We're seeing that with, the whole James Comey and the what do you call it? The fake dossier and all this stuff is all just now coming out. And we're coming to the realization that, oh my God, there's within our own government, there's these groups that have been doing some not so nice things.
Got some shady stuff. All right, hold on. Somebody asking you a question here, Reuben. The Killer Critic, $5, thanks. He says, is there the possibility of Virgil, Lady, and Trish being playable in DMC5? And please say I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light.
I don't think I could do that line credit as it's been done in the past. So I'm going to just leave that line as it is, because it's such a classic, brilliantly delivered line. So we don't want to mess that up. And as far as a possibility for other characters to be playable, anything's possible.
There you go.
Wink, wink.
See that? Wink, wink. There you go. See, one thing I want to say to people in the chat, especially for those that are, because I know Tug, you and Flash are going to Anime Matt, right?
Maybe trying. I don't know if I'll be able to afford just $2,000 on the table like that right away, but we'll see.
I am. They even invited us as press. It was really, it was kind of awesome. Yeah. So I don't know, if you see a guy in an umbrella mask come to interview you, you may know who that is. Yeah.
Excellent. I'll be looking out for you.
The reason I'm mentioning it is because I'm guessing you're going to do your usual round of panels that you do over there, right, Reuben? The nighttime panels, probably.
I haven't gotten verification on that, but I hope to. Yeah, I hope they give me the space to do my What Is Reality panel.
Yeah, because if y'all haven't been to one of those are super fascinating. I already when you came to Ranger Stop a couple years back, and we were the only ones in the room, but which is fine. But I'm sure you'll get a much bigger turnout over there at Anime Matt. It's much bigger, but it was real.
And now we have all this D-class of information that sort of validates a lot of the stuff that I've been saying.
Yeah. So if you all have never been to one of those panels, it's a lot of fun, a lot of information. So that's the reason I'm mentioning it for Tug and Flash.
Yeah,
I have a chance to sit in on one if they go, and Flash it maybe after the stream. But we should talk about about that about Anime Matt, because I'm still kind of on the fence about going too. But maybe we can figure something out, man. If you're down to talk about it afterwards.
I'm actually going down to NASA because we're in Houston, right? So I'm filming a documentary on my work called ETA, Extraterrestrial Arrival. And my friend who's the filmmaker who I'm working with, his parents actually used to work at NASA there in Houston. So they're going to try to get us access and do some filming and talk to some NASA scientists about aliens. That's going to be fun.
Dude, that's awesome. Might as well take advantage of the opportunity, especially being in that area.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I told my buddy, I'm like, hey, I'm going to Houston like in a month or so. He's like, really? Okay, let's go. So he's going to tag along, and I have a little film crew filming me at that one. So if anybody wants to be in my documentary, come say hi.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I know that also. You're coming back to AFO. You're coming back to
Yes.
to my side of the.
That's right. To Orlando in August.
Yeah, so that'll be cool, man. Yeah, I'm gonna
I'll be doing the panel there. AFO, I've been doing it consecutively every year, so the audience is sort of grown with me every year, and I add new nuggets to it. But this year, I think for AFO, it's going to be a very different "What is reality" panel. It's going to be far from anything we've done before.
What do you think? What do you think about the simulation theory?
I'm 100% on board with it. I think for me, it's the only logical theory that, well, let me just say this. Not only is it logical, but I've had some extra dimensional whispers in the ear, so to say, to help verify that so-called theory. In my reality, it's a fact.
Interesting. All right, I got somebody just said something here. Let's see. CMS Scorks 89, $2. Thanks. Says Reuben, tell Nick Rekieta and Ty Beer hi at Anime Matsuri. So I guess you have to say hi to some people over there.
Okay, Nick who?
Nick Rekieta and Ty Beard.
Nick Rekieta and Ty Beard. Hi. Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll see you in person.
You'll be introduced to him. I'm sure. Since Doug's going to be there, he can introduce you to him.
Is Nick going?
Yeah, he said he was.
I believe Nick is going. Yeah, so
I didn't ask him about it for a while. So
yeah, I'm sure you guys, if you guys are going, you'll be able to introduce Reuben to those fine gentlemen. But yeah, so I guess now let's open it up to questions from anybody that has them here. And we'll go ahead and wrap it up. For all y'all in the chat there, if you guys want to ask Reuben some questions here while we still have them. And thanks again, Reuben, for being on. This has been a fun discussion to have. We got to have you on again in the future.
Oh, like I said, I could talk aliens all day. That's my favorite subject.
Oh, it's fun stuff, man. I mean, it's such an interesting, and like I said, even just outside of that, just the whole, like I'm very interested in learning more about stuff like false flag operations and things like that, conspiracies, to a degree, and stuff that's.
Well, so just you mentioned false flags. Okay, so we know if anybody's paying attention to the political environment right now, there's a lot going on, right? Mm-hmm. How many times have you heard Trump in the past couple of weeks say treason? These mm-hmm. people are going to pay. Mm-hmm. So, and then everybody's like, what, who, what, treason, who's going to pay? What's going on? What, okay. A lot of shit is about to hit the fan. And what happens when these things happen is in order to distract from what's happening, right? As we've had the news media go on for 2 years about Russian collusion and everything else, is they create another narrative for us to focus on. We see that a potential Russian collusion narrative, and that's been the main push for 2 years, right? And then now it's done, it's finished, whatever, and the verdict is no collusion. However, we're getting into this next phase. So what happens in this next phase is there's going to be more distractions. And it's my prediction, which is actually a good thing, distraction, yet there's truth to it. What happened in the Navy, with the Navy, coming out last week about UFOs, I think the UFO story is about to get really, really big, like bigger than we've ever seen it before. And that's because it's the last ditch effort that certain groups have. It's the last card that they can play before they get outed and before they go to jail, because they have been dabbling in these secret technologies, and they have been dabbling in the UFO phenomenon for decades, and they know it's a big card to play. So we have to watch out how these cards unfold. Some of the information we're going to see, I believe, is going to be legit, true information. Some of the information could be false flags, if you want to call it, or disinformation in order to draw attention from the real thing that's going on. So yes, I'm big into aliens and I want disclosure more than anything, but I want it to be done right and truthfully and open, and not pieces of disclosure that are just going to distract people from what's really happening. So there's a lot of things happening simultaneously we have to pay attention to.
Well, that happens a lot. I mean, I think it happens with every administration office. There's always something to distract this. When certain laws are being passed, that affect our day-to-day lives, and they're focusing on something, completely, irrelevant, very minuscule in comparison. They'll focus on those things as opposed to reporting on stuff that will actually affect our day-to-day living.
Well, like the Patriot Act.
Exactly.
Let's distract with a war. Nobody will know, and then we'll just take away all the rights of Americans through a Patriot Act, and again, just sort of make that.
Yep. Happen. Get rid of red tape and due process. It's
right.
Ridiculous. Killer Critic asks, thank you so much for DMC5. I love playing Dante, so I guess he just wanted to tell you that. But yeah, just like with things like that, they happen all the time. One thing I wanted to ask you, and this is something before I forget here, is of all presidents in your lifetime, who do you think actually knows something? Because my personal, in my lifetime, I believe the guy that actually knew stuff, but obviously was never going. Flash looks like he's got to head out because of a storm. Yeah, that's fine, buddy.
It's getting bad here.
All right. Well, hopefully you won't lose your power there. But I think the guy, at least in my lifetime, that I think knew something and will probably never know now because he's passed was Bush Senior. I think probably knew some stuff.
Oh,
but that's stuff.
Not
Probably
only did he know stuff, but he kept it from us. So the people that knew stuff that tried to get it out, Eisenhower, with his famous resignation story about the military-industrial complex. Reagan to a certain extent, and Bush Senior, of course, he was one of the puppet masters of all this stuff. So when you look at the Bush family and you look at their ties and you look at Prescott Bush and you look at all of the nasty stuff that family has been doing, and I think they're, I say puppet master, but I think, probably the Rothschilds and some of these other bigger banking systems, actually banking families, used the Bush family as their foot soldiers, so to say.
But there's always a guy behind the guy.
Yeah, but if you have head of the CIA at the time, right? During when Jimmy Carter was in office, and it's rumored that Jimmy Carter came out of a briefing about UFOs and he was just in tears because of he had questioned, he had saw some things and he had questioned, and he started asking questions, and then he was briefed by Bush Senior at the time, who was head of the CIA, and then, like I said, it's rumored that he came out just in tears. JFK, obviously, one of the big ones that was onto something, and then he was taken out purposefully. And I think Bush Senior, personally, from my investigation, Bush Senior had direct ties to that assassination, which I'm pretty sure we'll find out more as that gets declassed. And then probably the most informed president we've had in a long, long time is Donald Trump.
He don't play. He's, people can feel how they want to feel, man, but you got to give it to the guy. He goes for it, man. I
think he's been read into a lot more programs than past presidents, and a lot more information than past. Does he know it all? I don't think so. But does it's no coincidence that his his uncle or his grand uncle was the head of the FBI that seized Nikola Tesla's documents. When Tesla died and the FBI got all of the documentations from the hotel room which he died in New York, Trump's uncle, I believe, was the head of the FBI investigation that got all those documents. So you got to know if he had Nikola Tesla's documents, Trump knows something.
Yeah, he knows something.
I think he's a great actor, and I think he plays dumb most of the time.
I think that too.
I think the guy is so much more informed than what we make him out to be.
That's what I think too, and I think that's something. That's definitely another. I think that's a topic for another stream, because I have some thoughts on that too. I think that he definitely is. Like you said, like to me, the way the one thing I tell people is this, and we'll just kind of wrap it up with all this here, is that when I see him and the things that he does, he reminds me a lot of a character in professional wrestling. He plays this role, right? He plays the role. And it's funny because he knows Vince McMahon. He's actually friends with Vince McMahon, the owner of WWE. But it's like he's got it figured out. He knows how to work the crowd, because that's something that professional wrestlers do. They know how to read the crowd and how to get that response out of them. And it's like he understands that very well. He knows how to read the crowd, and he knows how to play this role that will elicit the response that he's hoping to get from the crowd. So I that's definitely something, dude. We should. I mean,
his name is Trump.
Yeah,
his name is Trump. He is the biggest joker.
Yeah.
And if you look at archetypes, and you understand archetypal, energies and what this is, we're an archetype. The archetype of the joker, the Trump, the trickster, And if you look at those archetypes and traditionally in history, Joseph Campbell in his work, the jester, the joker, the Trump, they are the biggest teachers for the hero. So if we're all on the hero's journey and we come into contact with a guy like this, not that he's intentionally teaching us like the guru master, come and learn from me, but just with his actions, and he's actually teaching us he's teaching us how to become our own self-thinkers, to think for ourselves, and to not trust the government, to not trust him for sure. Let's not trust this guy because he's the biggest actor, but self-empowerment. And what are we doing? What is America doing right now? America is never in the history, well, not in the history, but in my generation, have so many people become activated to actually make changes and to do things and to get involved into politics and get involved with the government on a local scale or on a bigger scale, because they're so activated by this guy.
Yeah.
So personally, I don't like the guy and the energy that he puts out, but as an activator, as a piece of, of the story that's helping America wake itself up, I think he's doing a great job.
I would agree. But I think we should probably leave it at that. Hopefully you saying that won't be, we won't see an article about you saying that, and
whatever
on it, tomorrow or next week, because that seems how these things always happen, when he has clearly not said anything, to say that he is poor, because that's something, that's a narrative that they like to push. But let me just get this last question for you here, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and then everybody else here can go ahead and plug their stuff. So Christina Flint asks, Reuben, how much fun did you have doing DMC5? And then I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up there, because we're already over 2 hours here.
Yeah, that was what a awesome job, right? I can't believe I get paid to have so much fun, because one, it was, all the cast members, we pretty much knew each other, hanging out again with Dan and Johnny. Brian was a new addition with V, and then we had Itsuno-san, Shimomura, we had the old team back basically, which is just when you're working with somebody, with a group of people for so long like that, they're just like family. So it's like having a family reunion and then getting paid for it to have a good time and hang out, So I loved it. I had an awesome time. I hope there's another one. That'd be awesome to get the crew back together again. But these games are a massive undertaking. It took how many years to get 5 out. So we'll see.
There you go. Well, you'll be with them at AFO this year, so you have another reunion with them.
That's true. That's gonna be a good time.
All right. So Reuben, just go ahead and plug your stuff, man, where everybody can find you at if they want to learn more about the stuff you've spoken about here on the stream, or if they just want to say hi and just engage you in conversation.
Well, say hi to me on Facebook. I've got both a professional page and my personal page, which is just Facebook / Reuben Langdon, first name, last name, one word. I'm pretty active on Facebook, even though I know they're monitoring everything and they're selling our data to the CIA.
Yeah.
But hopefully that'll change soon as more awareness grows upon it. But also Twitter, hit me up through that. You can message me through Twitter or Facebook, and I usually get those messages. My website, ReubenLangdon.com. Again, first name, last name, one word. Instagram, which I do a lot of my artwork that I do with photography and drone work and short films, and have a whole bunch of fun with Instagram and that stuff. Also, Reuben Langdon, first name, last name. My website, I told you, and then you can go through my website portal, or you can go directly to citizenhearing.org, which is the 5-day event in Washington, D.C. that I produced, which was the mock congressional hearing on the extraterrestrial subject. So over 40 hours of testimony. Definitely go check that out if you want to know more about what we talked here specifically in this podcast, or this airing. We talked a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of evidence, 40 hours of testimony from the top government people and researchers and witnesses who've been in this field for a long time. Then also I have another series that's out on the Gaia network right now. If you have a Gaia subscription, you can check it out. It's called Interview with Ed, which stands for Extra Dimensionals. And it's also available on my Vimeo page. So you can access that through interviewwithed.org. And that's all one word, Interview with Ed.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll be sure to link that here in the description here after I post the video up. So Tug.
Hey there, this is That Umbrella Guy. You can look me up as That Umbrella Guy on YouTube. That's about it.
All right. Thanks, Tug, for
Hey, it's been interesting, man. I've enjoyed it, actually. I've enjoyed it quite a bit.
Cool. Well, hopefully we get to hang out at Anime Matsuri.
Oh, yeah, man. I actually want to see, you put on one of the night panels. That would be cool, man. Because I was looking up what was going to be there. And I thought, man, that'll actually make it fun.
Very cool.
You guys will get to talk more depth. And of course, I mean, you all know, if you're here, the channel, all the channel stuff. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you. Yellow. Yeah, I know your cable went out, buddy. I know you had said it. Yellow kind of his cable dropped. So that's why he's not here to say stuff. But for those of you, Yellow, obviously his channel is Yellow Flash 2. On Twitter, he's Yellow Flash Guy. If you guys want to go ahead and follow him as well. And of course, if you're here, my stuff is Toy Bounty Hunters pretty much across all social media platforms that I'm on. So for those of you that want to hit me up or follow me on there, the next live stream I will have here, I will have Micah Curtis on, for those of you that don't know, and that'll probably be sometime next week. I'll announce it here on the channel and on social media. That's Micah Curtis, who is a writer. He's also working on a comic book. Oh, Tug, do you want to go ahead and plug your GoFundMe and your project? Want to talk about that real quick before we go ahead and close this out?
Sure. Yeah, we have about 10 days, actually 9 days left. I have the Case of the Littlest Umbrella. It's an all ages, not meaning kids only, meaning anybody who wants to check it out. Lovecrafty intel, so you can check that out. It's got a kind of a manga-esque style. I think a lot of people will enjoy there. And we have another project attached to that as well. Like I said, if you want to go check it out, Case of the Littlest Umbrella, 2 books on that. Check out the $40 tier on it. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll definitely put that out there for you. So that is it, y'all. We'll have Reuben on again in the future, hopefully, and Tug and Yellow Flash. You guys are always welcome on the channel as well. Definitely want to have a stream with you guys too in the near future here. So until next time, y'all, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate you being here. For those of you that send super chats, it looks like the stream daddy for this time around was Mr. The Killer Critic. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. We appreciate all your questions. And until next time, y'all know how it goes. The hunt continues. Oh, and thanks, Tug. I saw that you also put 10 there. So thanks, Tug. All right.
It was good. I had fun. So why not put you in?
Good times. All right. Y'all take care.
Thanks for having me on. And don't forget, aliens are real.
They're real. They exist. All right. Talk to you later, y'all.